The next one's the next of the truism. Communication is important. We have more means now of communicating than at any other time in our history. We have emails, we have text, we have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have a million ways of which we communicate, and I would doubt whether mankind's ever communicated worse than what we actually do now. You can be sitting in your office and you get an email from the person, in the next office. Wouldn't it have been better if they put their head around the corner and just said, "Look, Cameron, I'm thinking of doing this, what do you reckon?" Rather than having an exchange of emails which might take you 3 times as long to actually go through and try and cognise, when a simple conversation eye to eye would have actually created that. So as often as I can, I try to make the communication as personal as I can. You want to see someone's personality as part of their communication. This mechanism, if you like, of Whiteboard Wednesday is another means by which we seek to communicate. And so the real challenge for people is not to hide behind what is this very convenient means of communication, whilst understanding that communication is also an evolving thing, that Gen X communicates different to Gen Y. I'm somewhere between a baby boomer and Gen X, but I've got a son who's Gen Y, straight out of the picture book of Gen Ys. But you do need to understand that still the best sort of communication is one whereby you can actually give and receive feedback eye to eye. And so we really encourage that as much as we can, and it's a very important component of the model that we use in regard to leadership, which is the leading teams model, whereby we have to give feedback to each other in a very direct way. Feedback is such that every member of staff is told 2 things we'd like them to start doing, 2 things we want them to keep doing, and 2 things we want them to stop doing, as well as describing each other in 3 words. And I sit in front of the entire staff and receive that sort of feedback, because in my role sometimes it can be an avoid when it comes to feedback from that point of view. But it's really to try and establish a means by which we can encourage a communication which is really meaningful, understanding that all the other stuff still needs to happen, but never to avoid that notion. The fourth of the truisms is this: people are human. So often when people put together strategies and direction and all those sorts of things, they think that somehow they're operating with machines. As I said, change is different. Why? Because people personalise the change as it affects them. Again, because why? They're human. And so in understanding all of that, we also know that people have good days, they have bad days, they have personal circumstances which may be working against them on a day-to-day basis. They may have troubles within their family, it might be a marital issue, it might be a sick kid, it might be that the dog got run over yesterday, and it's these sorts of things which are very, very important to consider in the day-to-day life of your people. I saw a stat the other day which said that at some stage in an AFL player's career, up to 30% of every AFL player will suffer from some form of clinical depression. And so why? Because we have these massive expectations of these young guys and these young athletes who are getting this constant feedback. They're being judged every single day of their lives. And we think of them sometimes, and we assess them as being anything other than just young people finding their way in the world. And so in terms of that, we need to know and recognise the different personalities, the different type of people, and understand our people as much as we possibly can. But also get to know them, get to know what makes them what they are. And the great thing is, it's the rich mix of different types of personalities within the workplace or within a football team or within any environment, which gives you the real energy. And I try and encourage as much diversity of both view and idea, and be as non-prescriptive as I can in regard to the direction we're actually taking. Establish frameworks, but give people the opportunity to have their own creativity and energy within it all. And I think that's really, really important part of how people grow up. I take great pride in the fact that some of our young staff are really starting to take steps in regard to how they operate, the same way as you take pride in when Jack Grimes goes back with the flight of the ball, or when Chipper Frawley takes on the opposition with a touch of arrogance. You see young people grow, and that's what great organisations do. But always understands it's not necessarily a straight pathway all the way. The final one of the truisms is just this: the future is tomorrow. And the future for tomorrow, why? Obvious, but get great energy. There's enormous hope and expectation about where you can take any organisation, and as difficult and as challenging as any phase of your development may be, there's great expectation that you can actually improve. And I think in any organisation, you get your energy from either your achievements of the moment. We're feeling very energised today. Why? We had a great win yesterday. But should the energy be any less after the Adelaide game or the Collingwood game or the Hawthorn game, when the same degree of optimism and positivity really was there? It hasn't changed that much. And so the energy that we try and establish, and one of the lines we use is that this notion for the Melbourne Football Club of heritage and hope. The heritage gives us this great view as to where we've come from and the authenticity about the Melbourne Football Club and the great responsibility we have to try and create something great, and we refer back to it all the time. But the hope comes with the optimism for the future. So if we can establish a framework and build a plan and introduce great people to our organisation, that creates enormous energy within the club. And that's why that future is tomorrow. Let's always recognise and understand, as difficult and as challenging as the present may be at any time, there is always a way forward. And in the space of, I think, 18 months, 2 years within our football club, you can see there's a renewed sense of optimism and hope. And I think a pretty good understanding of just exactly where the club's heading, and also can represent that. Increasingly we hope to represent that by the way we play and the way that we communicate with our people. So they're my 5 little truisms. So obvious, but so important to always reference back. It's a little bit different this Whiteboard Wednesday. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to speaking with you next week. Thank you.